Good morning and welcome to NewsWare's Trade Talk for Friday, April 10th. Okay, let's get into the action. Take a look at the S&Ps, which are trading higher. We're up 0.06%, which is minor, but we were lower. And, I have seen us tick up to, a tenth of a percent. So, it's kind of some positive action. I mean, today it's about, geopolitical events. It's about the latest inflation reading. I mean, European markets were lower this morning. They were flat to lower, I should say. But they turned positive, and they really turned positive on indications that Ukraine is close to making a deal with Russia in terms of a peace accord. That's positive. Now, in terms of the U.S. and Iran, well, the ceasefire is holding. At least the U.S. isn't, doing any military operations into Iran. But Iran remains kind of obstinate here, and they're not really letting a whole lot of ships through that Strait of Hormuz. And they're talking about, it's because Israel continues its offensive in Lebanon. Well, Israel said they're going to open up peace talks, so we'll wait and see how that plays out today. But they are, set for a meeting this weekend, and actually it starts late tonight because remember the time zone difference. So it's going to schedule for late tonight and it's a face-to-face meeting between Iran and the U.S. So this could be something. We got to keep an eye on this for the news events for the latest reports. On the economic front, this morning is really about that key inflation report, the March CPI data, which is set for release this morning. There's also a hearing today on President Trump's plan to levy 10% tariffs on imports. Yeah, that's unlikely going to hold up either. I mean, only Congress really has the power to put on tariffs, not the president. So he can keep trying, but they're going to keep getting pushed back. And, then this whole idea of we're going to have a refund and people won't have to pay income taxes anymore. It's fraudulent. It's not true. You've got to get this past Congress, and he's never done that. He's done a workaround, which really isn't sufficient. The pre-market, we're seeing some, positive action in tech stocks. Financial stocks are slightly weaker. They're not showing the gains, because you got a lot of earnings coming up next week, and a lot of the financial stocks are reporting. Lockheed Martin wins a big Army contract. Cars.com raised its buyback and announced some layoffs. GlaxoSmithKline, Beckham, GSK, they're pulling its drug application that the president recently touted, late last year. But next week we got a whole bunch of earnings coming up fast now. Goldman Sachs, CarMax, Citigroup, Wells Fargo, Johnson & Johnson, JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley, Bank of America, Progressive, Pepsi, Netflix, Travelers Group, and more. I mean, it's a big week for earnings. Okay, let's turn our attention over to Europe right now. And remember, the DAX was trading lower this morning, but now it's higher. It's actually higher by 0.66% or 156 points. This is positive, and it's really based on the Ukraine talks with Russia for a possible peace accord. The FTSE's higher by 30 points or 0.29%. You're seeing strength in mining and pharmaceutical stocks. In France, the CAC is higher by 48 points or 0.59%. You're seeing gains in luxury goods. You're seeing gains in tech stocks. That's all positive. Then we're looking at Asia last night, and Asia was green as well, with the Nikkei jumping 1.84%. That's over 1,000 points. Largely driven by tech stocks. Hong Kong, the Hang Seng was up 141 points. That's 0.55%. It's due to upbeat regional data that lifted financial stocks and tech shares. In China, Shanghai Composite Index rose by 0.51%, led by advances in semiconductor-related shares. In China, they released their producer prices data, which really showed the first increase in like 4 years, primarily due to the rising energy costs. But let's talk about oil for a second here. And oil is, it's flat to higher. It was slightly lower. But earlier this morning, it was up 2%. And now it's up 0.35%. Get WTI trading at $98.16. That's up 0.3%. Brent is at 96.05, up 0.14%. And really the Russian-Ukraine talks, the Middle East talks, these are the catalysts that's really affecting oil prices. Those Ukraine comments have the ability to push oil prices lower, and the Middle East peace talks could do that as well. Now, only 7 ships have navigated through the Strait of Hormuz yesterday. The U.S. has held off on any attacks. Israel has apparently opened to talks with Lebanon. However, Iran continues to hold up the maritime traffic. they got to give on that. They have to give on that. So we'll keep an eye on that. But WTI is in play this morning, that's for sure. Moving over to earnings news, TSMC, they reported March net revenue, $415.19 billion versus $285.96 billion last year. Wells Fargo, WDFC, that's WD40. That stock showing some gains this morning as they beat by 9 cents on higher revenue. Ticker D, WDFC. Actually, the stock's lower by 0.4% now. It actually pulled back. We'll keep an eye on that. But next week, listen, ton of earnings. FAST, Goldman Sachs, CarMax, Citigroup, Wells Fargo, Johnson & Johnson, JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley, Bank of America, Progressive, Pepsi, Netflix, Travelers Group, and more are all coming out. Now, Goldman's coming out Monday morning. Their EPS is $16.48 with the expected move of 6% when they release on Monday morning. Okay, now we're moving over to the economic reports, and we got to start off with the CPI for March. That's coming out at 8:30 a.m., 1 hour before the opening bell. Now, the headline is expected to climb to 0.9% month over month. Now, that's the largest increase in June of 2022. In February, we saw a gain of 0.3%. On a yearly basis, the CPI index is expected to reach, 3.3%. Now, that's up from 2.4% in February, marking the highest level since May of 2024. I've seen, readings of 3.4, but I'm saying 3.3 because I think that's a little bit more conservative. So, anything under 3.4 will be positive. Then at 10 a.m. you get the consumer sentiment index report. That's the University of Michigan data. It's likely to come in weaker because it's March data. You get the delayed factory orders at 10 a.m. and then at 1 p.m. we get the Baker Hughes rig count data coming out. Now let's talk about some of the stocks that are moving in the markets this morning. Listen, you got to start off with Apple. I mean, the fact is that you look at the stock this morning, and it is lower. It's down by about 0.6%. Amazon, Amazon continues to deliver strong gains. It's up, about 0.25% this morning. I mean, yesterday it had an outsized day because of that letter from the CEO. But today, the attention's really on this DOJ inquiry into NFL's anti-competitive behavior probe that they're doing, and Amazon looks to benefit from that. Remember, games cannot be shown. Regional games cannot be shown locally if the broadcast stations don't carry it. So, they're fighting this one. The NFL is fighting this one because they want that TV revenue, and they don't get as much TV revenue from Amazon. But we'll have to wait and see what happens here. Then we're taking a look at shares of Meta this morning, and what's Meta doing this morning? Yeah, it's up 0.6%. It's really betting on AI to lift the stock higher as it navigates negativity surrounding, youth access to social media. We'll keep an eye on that as the day goes forward. Netflix showing some slight gains this morning. I mean, realistically, their earnings are coming out next week, and that's really what's driving the stock. There's a lot of anticipation here. But, for the past quarter, it's all a bit about their pending buyout of pending buyout, and that they lost that deal, so we'll have to wait and see. But they're going to get a big chunk of change because they're going to get paid because they had to walk away from that deal. We're talking Dow Jones 30 stocks, NVIDIA, ticker NVDA. You look at the stock this morning, and it is trading slightly lower. It's flat to lower, but they're investing in the CPU startup Sci-Fi, which could be something. Apple, they're shutting down that unionized store in Maryland. Not good. Well, I mean, it's understandable, I will say. Microsoft showing some slight gains. OpenAI, Web, they're introducing a new $100 a month ChatGPT Pro tier. That's positive for OpenAI, which kind of helps Microsoft, so we'll keep an eye on that. In terms of guidance news, WDFC, WD-40 backs their full year 2026 EPS view of $5.75 to $6.15. There are a couple estimates out there, looking at $6.08. So, it's okay. The estimates might be a little high, but we'll have to keep and see how that goes. What else do we have in them? We got to talk buybacks. Cars.com, ticker CAR, Charlie Apple Richard. They raised their buyback program to 90 million from 60 million. CAR, Charlie Apple Richard. That's all positive. Okay, now we're going to move on to our pick of the day. And you know what? I'm going to go with Datadog, DDOG. I mean, the stock really took a hit yesterday. It was a horrible day, but, the call volume wasn't horrible. I mean, 11,196 to 9,389. That's positive. Open interest, 115K to 129K. I'll call that flat. Major brokers, they have been lowering price targets, but they're lowering their price targets, and they're at the $170 range. And with stock at $10, this is kind of rather cheap. So yeah, I do like Datadog at these levels. It makes me much more comfortable. Now, in terms of an entry price, 108.50 is kind of what I'm hoping for. 108.50 to 109, somewhere around there. But that's my pick of the day. Datadog, ticker DDOG, David Oscar Grace. Okay, now we're going to move on, and we're going to talk about the stocks that are moving the markets in the last 15 minutes or so. Let's see what we got here. CoreWeave upsized its $3.5 billion convertible senior notes offering. Makes sense. Stock had a good day yesterday. Ticker DBD announces its inclusion in the S&P 600 small cap index. Anthropic agrees to rent computing power from CoreWeave, CRWB. Pony, P-O-N-Y, Pony AI launches Pony World 2.0 for physical AI engine of autonomous driving. Trump's weighing pulling some U.S. troops from Europe amid NATO tensions. CarMax adding additional board members following talks with Starboard Value Fund. Papa John's Pizza, PZZA, elevated put volume yesterday. I mean, remember, they had recent takeover talks, and they're starting to fade, so I'm not really surprised. Flutter Entertainment, FLUT, option play volatility is at 63, 52 with range is 26 to 72, so it's on the high end. One call to 4.5 puts yesterday. That's all I'm saying this morning. Okay, now we're going to move on to our pick of the day. Listen, yesterday we had that, positive news going on in Tesla. And Tesla's been selling off hard as of recently. But, the fact of the matter is that they got that SpaceX API going public, and that was benefiting Tesla yesterday. I mean, the stock opened up at 343.01, fell to 337.25, and then closed at 345.75. This morning it already hit 347.50. So whether you got in my entry price of 341 or the opening price, the 1% gain was there. So Tesla's pick yesterday was a winner. WINNER. Okay, guys, that concludes today's podcast, NewsWare's Trade Talk podcast. You guys know what to do. Let's go out there and let's make some green.